Gulam Mohammed Sheikh's art was enriched by his scholarship. His study of art history and his coming of age in the syncretic traditions of his native Gujarat informed the evolution of his quotational style and the intense color palette. Sheikh spent his childhood steeped in the pluralistic culture of his hometown, Surendranagar. Here he was in close contact with local Muslim, Hindu, and Jain traditions at home, in school, and throughout his friendships. Later, as a member of the Faculty of Fine Arts at the Maharaja Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, he independently studied art history, as well as the Hindu, Christian, Buddhist, and Islamic schools of thought that have so deeply influenced the arts. Eventually, it became very important for Gulam to engage with the inherited cultural traditions in his own work, which led to the formation of a subjectivity at once rooted in diverse traditions and yet untrammeled by the anxieties of influence. In the words of art historian Chaitanya Sambrani, this was apparent in his work after time spent in Europe in the 1960s, where he really explored prevailing artistic traditions and was exposed to works from the European Renaissance period, as well as Victoria and Albert Museum's extensive collection of Indian miniatures. On his return to India in 1966, Sheikh's palette began to include bold reds, pinks, blues, and yellows, exhibiting the impact of his close study of Indian miniatures and their striking coloration. This present lot from 1987 is dominated by brilliant shades of red, yellow, and green, and also shows the continued influence of miniature traditions on Gulam's palette. Here he expands the role of color beyond the visual to register the impression of the sense of experience of Indian living. Gulam has stated that the effect of color is meant to be thermal, something you feel at different levels of temperature. So in that sense, color is not only part of a spectrum, it is seen in terms of touch, by feeling it. Alluding to the eponymous lake in Baroda, Sursagar is layered with a multitude of figurative, architectural, and natural imagery. Here, human figures occupy various pockets of the canvas. A turbaned rider atop a bike, and others lounging in doorways and crouched on the floor. An overwater bridge flanked by boats on either side leads to a squat structure. And flora and fauna loom on either side of this configuration. This bringing together of disparate elements to explore a sense of simultaneity and multiplicity is so characteristic of Gulam's narrative figuration, according to Sambrani. The present lot, like many of his works from the 1980s, presents a narrative like the fluid narratives found on the walls of the Ajanta caves. And none of these really necessarily form a linear pattern. In the artist's words, if you worked within a frame as I did, the question was how to break it and bring multiple stories within its borders with several entries and exits to enable the viewer to enter from one story into the other. When you look at this work, the eye is drawn to a large tree here, shaded in yellows and greens, which fills the right third of the frame. The figure of the tree holds a particular personal importance for Gulam, who's used it as a recurring motif in his oeuvre, especially in his works of the 1980s, like the present lot. In these years, the artist lived in a residence with a view of a champa tree from his bedroom. Further, the tree holds a great cultural significance in South Asia, where it represents enlightenment for Buddhists, Muslims, and Hindus. His exploration of these themes through the tree metaphor reached an apotheosis in 1996 with a monumental work, Tree of Life, which was a mural in Bhopal, where the tree, in Sambrani's words, provided for temporal and geographical telescoping as a way for producing a new insight into the past and preferring critique for both the present and the future. Together, the bold Indian colors of the present lot and referential symbolism indicate a sweep of influences which impacted Gulam's work. This work exemplifies his narrative style, which draws from diverse pictorial and cultural traditions, remains nonlinear, and draws the viewer into multiple layers within this picture. Sambrani summarizes the figure of the tree in particular as a rich art historical vein that extends through many of the world's philosophical and religious systems. Bid on this work and other significant lots by India's leading modernists at Saffronart Spring Live and online auctions in Mumbai on 13th and 14th of March 2024.